Hi guys, thanks so much for tuning in today. My name is Carla Kendig and I will be presenting on behavioral interventionists today. So let's get into what does a behavioral interventionist do? So the job of a behavioral interventionist is done for the purpose of providing support, monitoring, and training using behavioral management techniques, intervention strategies, coping skills, and problem solving for students and adults with behavioral challenges. So let's get into what the daily role looks like. So the daily role of a behavioral interventionist is to evaluate clients and mental, physical health, addiction, or problems with behavior and assess their readiness for treatment. Help clients develop goals and plans, work with clients to identify behaviors or situations that interfere with their recovery, teach families about addiction or behavioral disorders to help them develop strategies to cope with those problems. So that's basically the daily role of what a behavioral interventionist does. What does it take to be a behavioral interventionist? So what it takes is compassion, interpersonal skills, listening skills, speaking skills, patience, and dedication. When you're working with children or adults that are having behavioral issues, there can be a kind of tension or just upsetness that maybe something's not working. And there's just a lot of challenges with being a behavioral interventionist working with these demographics. And so you have to have a lot of patience and just a lot of explanation for the process. And so that's just kind of what it takes to be a behavioral interventionist. So let's move on to the setting of the role. So where does this usually take place? So this usually takes place at their home, at their school, a hospital, a mental health clinic, a 12-step program, or a public place during the session. So usually working at home, research usually suggests that working at home allows whoever is having these interventions to understand in a place that they feel comfortable. And usually this is where they're spending most of their time. And so they're able to grasp what you're working through your plan a little bit better than if you were to work at a clinic. And so this is usually the regular areas that you work with. And then you're also able to, once you've established trust in your client, you're able to go to public places like a bowling alley or a library where you can kind of work on the interventions that you've been working with at home and work in a public place and just get out to have fun generally. So who are you working with? You're usually working with 4 to 21-year-olds on average, and you're usually working with people who suffer from alcoholism, drug addiction, eating disorders, and other behavioral problems such as autism. So you're usually working with children or young adults for the most case of behavioral interventionists, as most behavioral interventionists work within the autism spectrum disorder area. But you also get to work with people who are in 12-step programs or just going through something that they want to work with in terms of their substance abuse disorder. So the average case time is between 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. and you usually work between 3 months with the client. And this is from start to beginning, so starting with the plan and then slowly easing this intervention and then eventually leaving and leaving it to either the parents, the friends, or just the client in general. And so that's what the setting looks like. So what does education look like? So you need a high school diploma. This is the minimum standard to be considered and accepted. And only 0.1% of people who are behavioral interventionists have a high school diploma. So that's really low. And so what you can do is get your BA in psychology or any social science such as social work, sociology, and counseling psychology. And so this is just considered by most recruiters, either you're continuing or you've already completed your bachelor's degree in one of those social sciences. What you can do is to get a leg up in your field is to get a master's degree in applied behavioral analysis. And so this is 30.6% people have a master's degree. And this just allows you to be either the counselor or the program supervisor in whatever company or organization you're working with. So now let's take a look at the certifications. So the bare minimum certification you need is a crisis prevention intervention, and you need this 6 months from being hired. This just allows you to understand the client and help them with any things that might arise during your time. The next one you need is a registered behavioral technician, and so this is a supervised only certification, so you need a supervisor to do it, and it requires 40 hours of formal board approved training. And then lastly, the last certification you need is a certified assistant behavioral analysis. So usually you get this in your bachelor's courses, and this is one of the last ones you'll need. So now let's take a look at the prospect. So let's talk money. 40%, $4,000 to $149,000 is the range of a behavioral interventionist, and the U.S. reports $75,480 per year, and that's around $36 per hour yearly. So that's just like what the money looks like, but most of the time you're not doing it for the money, you're doing it for the people. So the average length of employment working with the company is around 2 years, and that's usually due to them either moving up or moving into maybe a therapist or counseling route. So the projected job growth is at 22%, and this is due to just more awareness of autism spectrum disorder and just the need to have that job in the market. So as I mentioned before, most people usually move in a career path. So some of the common ones you see are social worker, MFT, program lead, a therapist, a consultant, and clinic supervisor, and then finally a program manager. These are the career path routes that you can go through beginning as a behavioral interventionist, and this is usually what we see for, on average, most of the behavioral interventionists that start entry level. Lastly, let's go over the statistics overview. So best states to be a behavioral interventionist is Vermont, Wisconsin, North Dakota, Maine, Minnesota. The top companies to work for are the Autism Spectrum Therapies, the Easter Seals Bay Area, Washington County Mental Health Services, New Behavioral Network, and ACES ABA. And then the ethnicity we see for behavioral interventionists is 54% white, 24.1% Hispanic or Latino, 9% Asian, 8.4% Black, and 4.6% unknown. The genders we see are 64.3% female, 25.2% male, and 10.5% unknown. And that's what the statistic overview looks like. And this concludes my presentation today. Thanks guys so much for watching, and if you have any questions or just comments you want to leave, link it down below and I'd be happy to answer them. Thanks so much for watching.